podcast. I am your host, Eli. So, today, on this very special episode, we are introducing a new podcast that I am going to be hosting onto my channel. So, I am not going to be the host of this one. So, today, I brought in the host and the co host of the new show called the Purple Moon Podcast. Here's your host, Tuhi,
This me, Tuhi. This is my voice.
and his co host, Billy.
I am Pilly. This is my voice.
And they are the Tongan brothers. So, thank you for joining me, guys. Thank you, as always. First off, I want to ask you two a question. Where did the idea for this podcast come?
So it's actually very interesting. I've been reading manga for years, right? Longer than I can remember, to be honest. And but recently I got into podcasts. I got into listening to podcasts that, for example, some of the creators online that I follow have started making podcasts. So I started looking into podcasts, and manga being such a big part of my life, a big influence to my creative side of my life, is I decided to look into finding a manga-based podcast. And surprise, surprise, I didn't find one. I just couldn't find one. So then I decided to come and ask you to give me this opportunity to try to make one so that other people, if they find themselves in a similar situation when they're looking for other people to, talk about manga with, that, we'll have one there now. There will be one there, and hopefully, it'll become a community.
Oh, okay. So, with manga, it's a niche community, like very niche. Like it's very low key, to be honest. Like in the United States, it is a low key thing. Anime is
Okay,
more
yeah.
popular than manga, to be honest.
Yeah. In the United States, anime definitely trumps manga.
Yeah, because that's where like you see most of the communities around here. Like we do have international listeners, but we do mainly deal with the states.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to wonder is like how are you going to be talking more about like are you going to talk more about anime and Western animes and mangas, or are you going to just stick with like manga from Japan, Korean manga?
Yeah, so that's the thing is that's why I tried to steer away from naming the podcast something that would tie me down to something very specific. Not to say that not to say that I couldn't just talk about manga, instead of everything else, but I think that it's very important to also shine a light on Western creations as well as, creators in Korea and creators in Germany and other creators that are making these really great stories. They just don't get the light because they're created in places where not very many other creators are making the same type of media. And because of that reason, the only way for it to get any traction or popularity is through the internet and through online views and people reading that way. And so, of course, that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, because putting it online, it makes it so accessible for anyone that has access to the internet to be able to at least be able to listen to our opinions, even if they don't agree with it, and have a conversation and discussion about it, instead of just kind of being stuck in your own bubble with your own thoughts about a manga. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing, but that's where I find myself now, and I don't want it. I want to burst that bubble and start breaking into other people's bubbles, see what they think about the manga that I really, really love.
This is our crowning.
Yeah. So, Pilly, with you being the co-host, what would you bring to the show? Like, what are you gonna bring to like the podcast that will help grow the community or like progress it?
I will bring an alternate viewpoint just in case anything. Maybe we don't want to get stuck on an idea, so maybe I pretty much like the devil's advocate and or entertainment.
Oh, so you're like he's the pro, you're the con, and you try to like figure out the decisions.
I'm more like the clown. He's the pro. I'm the clown.
So one thing about this show that I'm finding very fascinating is the amount of content that there is out there. Like manga has been around since like I think the first one ever was like early 1900s.
Yeah.
And then like it didn't really catch steam until like probably the 70s and 80s, like to be honest, in like Western culture. So with it, I was
the thing is, in Western culture, the anime, because the anime scene came over, the transition to the Western civilization for the anime scene was just a lot easier than for the manga, because it's a lot easier to get someone to watch something than it is to get them to read something. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And back then it was only light novels, right? It was books, physical copies of books that you had to purchase and collect in order to follow through with the entire story of a manga. And it was just much more difficult back then, and now you have things like Viver and Crunchyroll and Funimation that makes just so much easier, as well as, you know, countless unnamed sites that will allow you to read manga or watch anime for free. You know, it's crazy to think, because just, you know, 5 years ago this wasn't possible. You know, it was difficult to find mainstream, or even, well, maybe more than 5 years ago. I you know, forgive me, I misplaced myself in time, but like maybe 8 to 10 years ago, it was like nearly impossible to be able to watch an anime that you wanted to seek out, or read a manga that you wanted to seek out, but you just couldn't find because either the creator hadn't transferred over to digital, or maybe they never planned on it, or they just maybe they stopped publishing the books, you know, and you just don't know because it's part of the Eastern culture, more so. And so if something gets canceled over there, we usually don't even hear word of it for a long time. But now with the internet and how accessible and quick information travels, you know, we get the information a lot sooner. Of course, that's what everyone wants.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that I've been seeing a lot in like manga communities is more they're trying to like get to the American audience more, like in some mangas. So in your experience with reading, have you seen like more of the, because in your show you're going to be talking probably about the details about it, right? Like details of some mangas, or like how you feel about it and like the culture inside and how it makes it different from others?
Yeah. As far as my knowledge extends, you know, of course I'm not gonna have every. In fact, I probably won't even be able to mention most references to other like media, or references to other like mythological figures in Eastern mythology and Eastern culture, just because me coming from the Western side of the world,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not privy to that information as easily as someone who grew up over there. But I think that my viewpoint, that doesn't make my viewpoint invalid, because I'm not here to say that my viewpoint is right. I'm not even here to say that my viewpoint is even a good one. I just want to share it so that people feel obligated to start a conversation. Because if we start talking about it, then all of our opinions will get better, you know?
So with you, Pilly, is there like, how am I gonna word this? Is there like something that like, are you gonna be bringing a manga on, like every episode, or are you just gonna be like just sitting there? He brings it on, and you guys just talk about it.
I did plan to bring on a manga every episode.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So what is the structure of your show gonna be? Are you guys going to be like just you guys bring a manga on and you automatically just go, oh, okay, so we each brought a manga and we're gonna each talk about it, and then we're going to talk about it with you guys and see how you feel about it? Or is it going to be like a structure? Is there like segments and other things?
There's gonna be a structure, a somewhat. I don't want it to, you know, I don't want this podcast to be hey, take me seriously, I know everything about manga. I just want it to be, if anything, just kind of like, if I can make it a fun experience that talks about manga. You know, I will admit we might end up going on to tangents about random things, and we might end up just making jokes sometimes. But I think for the most part, we're gonna have this a structure based in segments, where in one segment, the beginning segment in the introduction of the podcast, we're gonna have like a kind of a retelling of our last week. You know, what if we read any new manga, if we've been interested in new manga. We might even talk about things outside of manga. You know, But after that first little section, we'll get into the meat of the podcast, which is the manga we've brought to the podcast that day specifically to talk about with the other members of the podcast, and have them, like, basically I'll bring up manga onto the podcast and I'll explain it to Pilly, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll give him my opinion, and then he can, whether he agrees or not, we'll have a discussion about it and be able to talk about it. The main motivation for doing this is to give people who are listening kind of almost like a list of manga to start reading, because I find myself all the time caught up on all my manga, and I'm looking for a new manga to find, and I don't know if I want to jump into a 700 chapter manga that I might not be interested after 50 chapters, And so that being said, I don't think that there are many mangas that aren't worth like reading. It just depends on personal preference, and if I can't get into it after 50 chapters, I feel a weird feeling, almost like I started something then that I'm not gonna finish, even though
You dived in so much of the.
yeah, I almost feel obligated to finish at this point, like I owe these characters an ending to the story that I've started for them, and it's just really weird. But with this opportunity, we can really bring to attention to each other mangas that maybe we've never even heard before, that we'll be interested in, and I think that's awesome. I think that'll be really cool to bring each other, like, come together like that.
So a question that I have, because I always try to start a manga, but then I lose interest after like 10, 15 chapters. What is a recommendation of chapters that you have to give a manga a chance?
Oh man, I think our answers would actually differ. I want to hear your answer first, Pill.
I would say 20.
20?
Yeah.
So like for any, like, say for like One Piece, how many chapters do I have to give to like One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, like those major ones, like the mainstream ones, like, because those are going to be the popular ones that people are going to start with most likely. So what would you recommend, like, them starting with that? Because it took like 50 chapters for me to get into Naruto when I first started reading as a kid.
Really? So long?
Yeah, because I didn't find, because I was trying to introduce myself to it, and I had no interest at the time.
Right, it's just the main character's just this annoying brat that's telling everyone to believe it.
Yeah, so
know?
no, but then when I started learning about his past more, and like him actually like trying to find his way, I got into it.
Whoa. I immediately latched on to the lonely child, like, has to fight for everything that he has, like, just going through what one may call a hell, and just like, but persevering throughout everything, and just looking at everyone who says no, you can't do that, and just spitting in their eye. I love that idea. I was enraptured by the first chapter.
Yeah, and the same as me. I was also like by the very, very early in the story of Naruto, I was like enthralled by the hardships that Naruto has to go through, being so alone and stuff. And I am like, I was a sad child. So like,
Sad.
I mean, we're all sad.
Hashtag
children at one
relatable.
point.
You know what
Hashtag
I mean?
relatable. So for you, it'd be like 20 chapters for an average manga.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's more than enough.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of lays down a premise.
I think it really depends. My answer that I want to go to, like the first answer that came to my head that I would want to say is, I think that, like, you need a full arc. You need to read the full first arc of the story to find out if you really like it, because when it gets to the end of the arc, like, it provides some form of closure for at least some of the loose ends that need to be tied by the end of the first arc. And on top of that, at the end of the first arc is usually a pretty good place to stop if you don't like where the manga's going. Like, if you don't like it, you can stop and be like, well, I don't feel like I'm stopping in the middle of something. Whereas, like, maybe there's a tournament arc in one of the mangas you're reading, and you end up finding out you don't really like it. After the tournament and arc ends, there's usually, like, at least a chapter or two where it's just like a cool down period, where there's no, like, they're not trying to get into the big action. They're trying to get into the story behind the characters and how this is affecting them. I think that would be like a perfect opportunity to get out of the game while you can, you know.
Huh? Okay. So for most full arc, that's actually very interesting to me. Cause when I was, cause I try to do like with a anime series, I try to do that because I'm a real big anime fan.
Right.
So I try to do like episodes, like depending on how long the series is, because there's no specific answer really. I feel like.
Right. And again, personal preference comes into place. But like for instance, with One Piece, I would wait to stop reading until like after Luffy and Ko beat Buggy. I think that's like
How many chapters is that?
Pretty early.
Yo, I don't
That's
know
like-
how
that's like
many- I
16,
couldn't tell
18,
you.
20.
I couldn't
Okay.
tell you how many chapters, but like that's like the first time where they kind of end a part of the story and move on to the next island, you know. And if I remember correctly, that's also the same time where Nami like leaves and goes back to the Arlong pirates because they have control over her like a slave basically because of her upbringing.
Oh no, they get Usopp first, and then they
Before that,
they get Usopp directly after.
are you sure about that?
100%. Because they don't have a ship. They just have that little dinghy,
Oh.
and then they go to Usopp, kind of accidentally run into a ship,
Oh, you're totally right.
and then they get Sanji, and then Don Krieg. Because the story about
No.
Don Krieg, like, gets
Sanji's not there.
used.
Sanji's not there for the Don Krieg. Oh no.
Yeah.
No, the Arlong pirates. Arlong is before Don Krieg. Arlong is like because Nami goes back to where she grew up, and Zoro's there, and Luffy's
Mhm.
there, and I think Usopp was probably. Oh, man, is Sanji there? I think. Damn, I think you're right again. It's been so many years. How
It's
long
been
has One
so
Piece
many
been going
years.
on?
Oh
For like
my
almost
word.
20 years at
20
this
It,
point?
20 years?
1996.
Yeah, that's like 22 years.
Yeah,
That's
we're
crazy.
hitting 22, and the creator said he's only 65% done as of October.
He also said that he said a lot. He said a lot of things.
Yeah, there was a lot of that at that convention that we went
Hey,
to.
praise Oda.
Praise Oda. So one thing about manga is that, like in other communities, some mangas are like people use the inspiration to it. So like Berserk, Dark Souls.
Right.
Is there any like do you prefer like do you like that kind of idea where manga is taken into like the video game community or like
Oh man.
or like other communities to be like portrayed?
yeah,
Like
I
live actions and all that?
I love it. I love the gesture, right? I love the gesture towards the manga community and the anime community, because it's a gesture being like, I see what you're doing over there. I really like it, but I do this. But I like what you're doing so much that I'm gonna use part of that in what I do. Like, but it's more of an homage. It's more of a reference. It's not like I'm stealing your idea, because it's to a point where if you know the source material, you can tell that there's a reference, right? But if you don't, it doesn't have to matter to you at all. You know, you can just enjoy the product as is. And so I think it's really cool. I think, like, for instance, with the live action movies, like I don't think they've done any of them right. And
No,
like,
no.
at least on the western side of the
Heavens no. There's no
Yeah,
there's
there's no
no
really
live
good
action
example.
Yeah, there's no really good example. Even if like people say like Death Note tried, and it's like no, you can't say try.
Yeah, it's but like if you think about it though, you're taking this like incredibly deep and complex story, and you're trying to shove it in like less than 3 hours. And I just don't think it works that way. And if it does, you have to make like a trilogy, which is like impossible nowadays, because you have to be guaranteed to get the money back from the first movie to even guarantee the second movie, let alone the third one.
So there has been rumors. These I can't confirm these, but there's a Naruto live action coming out. I would want an opinion on that right now. Like, what arc do you think could be done?
Oh man, are we
Ye-
talking Naruto Shippuden or Naruto?
I just heard it was Naruto. So I'm thinking it's going to be a compilation. They're going to try to like shove in 2 arcs, one from the first series, the other one from the second one. So I want to hear from both of you, because you guys like Naruto a lot.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen? Like, do you think they're just going to go with a one arc from like the first series, or do you think they're just going to hop into Shippuden?
I could see him doing the tuning exams. That'd be a super easy, well, not easy, but it would be a really
Place time.
well placed time.
Is this
Yeah,
being
yeah.
made-
for like a
is-
2-hour movie? Oh yeah, that'd be so good.
Is this being made in like in Eastern culture or
I
Western
think
culture?
I think Eastern culture.
Okay, then I think if it's being made in Eastern culture, I think. Man, I don't trust it. I'm very skeptical of this movie. I don't think it's gonna do very well. Of course, I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but
That's what I said about Fullmetal Alchemist, and you saw the product of that. And that product was literally trash.
we don't talk about that one.
I cry when I saw that.
Yeah, but look, okay, I think they have an opportunity and the possibility. They have the capabilities and the possibility to do it right, and I think they could do it. What I think they should do with like a more accessible like arc to kind of plan on doing. I think the Team 7 mission, like their first mission to go get Zabuza, would be a really good arc. But the problem is, I don't know if they would be willing to do it with like actors that young.
I feel like they would, because
Well, I mean, Naruto's like 12,
13, yeah, 12, 13.
yeah, 12, 13 years old.
but
Was Sasuke a year older?
but they did
No, he
Attack on
wasn't.
they did
I don't
Attack
think
on Titan. They had kids 10, 11.
Okay,
So I think it would work.
all right.
Come on,
Well,
Full-
but
Full-
we're
Full-
talking like every main character of the story's got to be like
yeah.
in real life they're top, like they're gonna be like 24 years old, like they can't go any, like, because of course they've got older people acting as. The thing is, actually in Eastern culture it's more often it's more common than it is in Western culture for people to act closer to their age, so they could have like 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds acting as these 12, 13-year-olds. But the thing is, like, if I had to choose an arc, I would have to go with like.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, the thing is, you can't just jump into Shippuden because there's so much backstory that you need to understand in order to get anything that's going on.
So for me personally, I think they're either going to do what Pilly said, the tuning exams, but do like a little like half-hour intro to like how the characters got there.
But it's so complicated, though.
But that's the thing. That's why movies for these types of things. That's why they did the anime movies in arcs,
Yeah.
because they did 1, 2, 3, 4.
Or they're just like non-canon.
Yeah, non-canon at all. So this might be actually a non-canon story. They might just take a filler arc.
I think.
If they took a filler arc, that would suck. To
I
be
think
honest,
if anyone was ever considering this to be a canon story after it comes out, I think they're wishing for something that's not real. Like,
no movie is canon when it comes out. Like like Fullmetal Alchemist, Death Note, none of those are canon. Those are all crap.
Well, the thing is, like, it's not that they're not canon because they're crap. It's that they're not canon because they're supposed to be a retelling of a story, but the stories that they're trying to retell are so vast and big that you have to condense it so much.
Yeah, you're condensing a 500 episode series into literally like if you combine all the episodes together, it's about probably 700 episodes. You're condensing that, trying to give a short story of 3 hours. It's like someone trying to do
Which is truly a short story.
yeah, and which is like you're literally take all the filler out, which is like 45%. You get down to 400 episodes, 350, 400, and you're literally trying to condense that into a 3-hour film.
Yeah, even if you just choose one arc, right? You could just be chopping off like 350 of those chapters and still have like 50 episodes to shove into one movie, which, depending on the anime that you're choosing or the manga that you're choosing in order to adapt into a live action film, it could just be like impossible sometimes.
or like or like a video game where you can get a lot of aspects from the show and like the manga.
Yeah, I think the video game medium is an easier transfer because the whimsical and fantastical effects and features that come along with video games can match manga so well, very often. And I think the fact that video games aren't being made for some of these manga is just a straight up shame, just a crying shame.
Crying shame.
A very PG crying shame.
PG crying shame.
One tear.
One tear. Suck that tear back up,
Single
please.
tear, and then you put that in a little bottle and save it for your girl. Call yourself baby.
What are you, Johnny Depp?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
I wish I was Johnny Depp.
I was Johnny Depp.
21 Jump Street.
21
Bam.
Wait, 21 Jump Street, Johnny Depp?
No, no,
Yeah.
no,
He
no,
was
no, no.
so
Jack Sparrow.
nubile.
What?
Jack,
Yeah, I'm
Jack
I mean,
Sparrow.
Oh, that's a bit late. I'm talking like
I mean-
Finding Neverland, Johnny Depp, like just that prime sexy.
Do you know? Do you know Finding Neverland was made in between the films of?
I mean that look, the look of him. Like,
Yeah,
What,
you
the-
want
what,
an
clean cut?
alcoholic,
No-
crazy person.
No one's gonna touch me.
and he's
no
dirty. He's dirty. He's gross.
How?
one.
You know he has at least one disease.
Yo, I'm not saying that he's like
He can butter his way
smelly.
out of it.
Okay, I'm just saying, does he know what soap is?
No,
Is it
he knows what dirt is. That's for sure. He knows what a jar of dirt is.
straight face? No.
No.
Straight face, no.
No.
Teach him.
Teach
Teach
him
him.
teach him some
Does
hygiene.
he even understand water? You have to apply
Salt water?
multiple water.
Salt water. Hey, come on, come on. Rum is a good source of hydration.
No. No.
Look, Captain Jack Sparrow thinks hygiene is a gene in your body that gets you high. Okay, that's the Jack Sparrow you're trying to be with right now.
Where I'm trying to be with that Johnny Depp that's like supportive and a good father and like he looks suave and he do his hair. He do his hair, Eli.
Like Sweeney Todd.
Mm.
Ooh.
He'd do his hair.
Ooh, I mean, he
That's
do
for sure.
He do everybody else's hair.
No,
he,
no,
he
no,
don't
no.
do his hair.
No,
Do a
no,
little
no.
more than hair.
Yeah, he does a little more than hair, if you know what I'm saying.
no,
He
he do.
he does a little bit of 6 feet under.
He just likes to cut a little bit off the top, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
So with so with all the media, I wanted to get into a little more about how. Let's see. Oh, I had a question for you, because you guys are huge into the manga, anime. You're all into that world. I'm gonna ask you a question. Give me 3 genres. That's all you can read for the rest of time
For manga?
from manga. 3
man.
genres, and you can do a subgenre, but if you do a subgenre, you have to like specify the main one, like fantasy action or something like that. So like action, drama, slice of life, comedy. You can do like a comedy action or something like
I
that.
got mine. I mean,
Yeah,
you ready for
Yeah,
it?
I want to hear this. I
I'm
want to
not
hear.
ready. I'm not ready.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're
I'm
not-
ready.
Take your time, take your
You
time.
ready?
So, I mean, 3, that's like easy for me. That'd be shoujo, shonen, and slice of life. Those are my favorites.
Okay.
Oh, I contemplated like school life, but slice of life is
Slice of
most
li-
times encompasses school
Yeah,
life.
yeah, it's,
so
that's slice of life. That's a,
Yeah.
but you can get into sub.
Well,
sub
school life is almost like a subgenre of slice of life already. you
Yeah.
know.
Boom.
boom,
All right.
boomer.
But
Nice.
okay, so my 3 would be, I think I'd go with shonen. I'm a sucker for shonen, man.
I love a good fight.
Yeah. Exactly.
You love that young
Um,
male lead.
Nubile.
I really like isekai anime and isekai manga.
Oh, I forgot.
What is isekai?
So in isekai anime is an anime that is based in a world where the main character is not from that world. So like for instance in Sword Art Online, it's an isekai anime and the main character is from the real world, but he enters this virtual world and then is stuck there, you know, for an indefinite amount of time. And so it's like in isekai anime,
Okay.
they're really good because the audience learns with the main character.
Like No Game No Life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But like someone, a character going to Africa is not an isekai. It has to be a
No.
world,
But for
different world.
right. Like Inuyasha is an isekai anime
Good
Yes.
because
yes.
because she falls into the well and goes into the
Kagone
other
goes
world.
into the well and goes to the other world. Yeah.
Gome falls in love. Yeah,
Yeah.
Literally.
Falls in love.
she falls
Yeah.
into him.
She named that well Love. Weird.
Yeah, so weird. Oh my gosh. So what's your third one?
Oh, and then my third one, I think I'd just go with fantasy. I I love action. I love adventure. I love a good just adventure, right? But I think fantasy is it just really opens the doors. The broadness of the possibilities that are available. You got superhero anime and manga. You have sci-fi manga. You have, but all of these can fall under the guise of fantasy, and maybe that's a bit too broad to for it to be a favorite. And so if you wanted me to be more specific, it'd just be like fantasy action. I would say fantasy action.
Fantasy action. I feel like that's a more of a sub-genre because
Yeah.
fantasy is the main thing
Yeah.
and action's just the side arc, a little touchy.
Right.
Little side word, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so
Not for every day, but for some days.
so you guys like that action packed stuff. You so with I'm blanking right now, and I hate blanking. It's the worst thing in the world. So with
We all do.
dang it. So with like your love of those genres, does that relate to like any other like communities that you join, like video games, TV shows? Like does your like do you let like your your interests fall into other?
Yeah, I would say these interests influence my other interests, but I think it's I just have a particular
Set of skills.
a particular set of skills. But I just I have a particular preference when it comes to what I like reading. I'm actually kind of picky, to be honest. Like even if it fits all the criteria of genre and everything, and I read like a good 50 60 chapters in and I'm just like not interested anymore, I drop it, because I don't know, I feel like if I have to force myself to read the next chapter, it's like I shouldn't have to force myself. It should be like I should have to want to open up the next chapter as soon as I finish the last one. That's how I want to read them. And so when it doesn't do that, I usually don't drop it very quickly. I'll give it I'm pretty generous. I'll give a manga like 100 chapters before I straight up give up on it.
100 chapters.
Yeah.
Woo.
Just because, like, for instance, I started reading this manga. Well, it's a comic, but it's on this platform called Webtoons.
Praise
started-
Webtoons.
Yeah, and so there are these web comics that anyone from anywhere around the world can make an account and post their own comic, like create their own comic and post it on this website, or just read other people's comics. And the comic that I read on this webtoon is called Sidekicks, and like the entire first legitimately like 100 maybe 115 chapters were just very like, I don't know if I'm that interested in these characters.
It was so slow.
Yeah, that's just how it felt. It was like 100 chapter long prologue, because but as soon as like it's almost like a switch is flipped, and then from that one chapter on, whatever chapter it may be where the switch flips, it becomes like a much more interesting story, a way more interesting story by leagues and bounds. And so I'm so happy that I didn't give up on it after like 100 chapters, because I ended up falling in love with the story afterwards, falling in love with where it went after 100 chapters of I don't know if I like this. And so that's why I try to be generous with the chapters that I'll read, because it's usually, even if it like starts off really good and then gets kind of bleak in the middle, if you think about it, if it started really good, the capability of writing really well and executing it really well is possible for this author. They just have to get into their stride or their groove again. And if they're in a off time right now, you just got to give them a little time, and hopefully they'll bounce back with the type of impact that they had that caught you in the first place.
Okay. So, as you were saying with the Sidekicks one off of Webtoons, and Webtoons, is it like a different type of manga? Is it like, because that's a thing. It's like we got normal Japanese manga. Is it from a different country? Like do they host from a different country, or what is it?
Well, so I can't tell you about like the inner workings of webtoons, like the headquarters,
Yeah.
physical headquarters,
Yeah, yeah,
whether
yeah.
they have that or not. But anyone from anywhere around the world can make an account and post a
Okay.
webcomic. So you know you have German creators, French creators, American, Canadian, South American, African, European, Asian, like Korean and Japanese and Indian. Like,
Okay,
there's
so
a lot of different areas.
So different creators, different countries, different cultures. Okay.
Yeah.
So with Sidekicks, since it took you like 115 episodes to get into it, do you like a slow progression story, or do you like a quick 15 chapters in you're hooked?
No, I want them to hook me on the first chapter, right? That's my goal. But I'm stubborn. So like if I start a new manga or webcomic and I don't like it at first, I tell myself, like shut up and keep reading. Like stop complaining and just keep reading for now, at least. And if it really sucks that much in 10 chapters, you can stop. And then after 10 chapters, it's like, or just shut up. 10 more chapters. After that, if it sucks, you can stop.
10 more.
Yeah, and then eventually I just start liking it.
and you just finish it. Okay. What about you, Pilly? Do you like the slow progression stories, or do you like the fast get into it and hooks you in quick?
Well, I do like a good slow progression, but not every time. It's a very niche. Like from the ones that I have found, it was fantastic, but it's not done very well. So simple answer, yes. I much prefer a slow progression, but it's not executed very well very often.
Yeah, I think to expound on my answer again is I just like a realistic progression. If it's a slow progression but it makes sense and there's legitimate reasons why the progression is so slow or the progression is at the speed that it's at, then I can accept it and I can enjoy the story a lot. But if the pace is really fast but there's a reason why, maybe certain plot devices exist that put a deadline on certain things and so the pace has to be much quicker, I think that's also very enjoyable. It's just about the execution. And I suppose you could say it comes down to the execution about everything we're going to talk about. But I think that as long as it's a realistic progression where you don't have to suspend your disbelief so much that it ruins the story for you, I think anything under that is just like golden, basically.
Sports manga and anime is the best like slow crawl, because you have to go like match by match, play by play, and describe like, oh yeah, he shoots the ball at the 3-point, like what? And all of a sudden everyone recognizes what's going on, just like, whoa, he's shooting the ball from the half court point. What is going on? This guy's crazy amazing.
Right. And also really like sports anime and manga also do a really, really good job of setting up the stakes of every single move that happens inside of the course of like a minute or a couple minutes.
I love that. That's so
You. So I'm thinking we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming on. I actually do appreciate you guys actually like wanting to actually be part of the channel, be part of the studio. I always like creating new content, and with people that actually want to do it, I actually do appreciate it, because I've worked with former creators and they just don't have the drive. Some of them don't. They just like leave you hanging, and I just didn't appreciate it. But I really do appreciate you guys coming on. So when is your show going to be like on? Like when do we expect your podcast to be on?
So the plan, hopefully, if everything goes well, behind the scenes with everything, but if everything goes planned well, we're gonna have it coming out on Wednesdays.
Wednesdays?
Yeah, Wednesdays.
And is there do you potentially see yourself doing like a live stream type podcast at one point?
I've thought about it, to be honest, but I haven't thought about it very much. I'm not very outgoing. I still have
personal.
Yeah.
Personal.
I'm still very shy, especially in front of a camera.
Yep.
And so I'd have to work up my tolerance, I guess, my comfortability level, I suppose, is a better way to put it, in front of a camera, and before I'm able to do that, especially live. I don't know.
And this going to be like once a week, twice a week? How many episodes a week?
I think I want to start with like one every 2 weeks, and then depending on how that goes, if everything goes smoothly enough, I think we can bump it up to once a week, and that would be really, like, that's the end goal. Right?
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, as always, because we like showing new people the content that we have. Leave a comment. What would you like to hear from this podcast? Would you like more towards the manga side, anime? Would you want to hear more video games, more pop culture? What would you like to hear? And don't forget that like button. We always like to see the support. And thanks, guys, for listening to the KNS podcast. You guys have a great day.